What's going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to the program. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show. Appreciate you being here along for the ride and appreciate you waiting. We had a little technical difficulty to get things started today. So for the live people, my apologies. For the people on the podcast, this is totally on time. Anyway, we got Phillies to talk about from yesterday's game. Absolutely incredible. Nick Casstellanos. If you haven't heard what Nick Casstellanos had to say about his catch in right field foul territory, to send the game in the extra innings, it's typical Nick Casstellanos. Bryson Stott even said, yeah, that sounds like Nick Casstellanos. Anyway, so we'll get to that conversation today. We'll get to Craig Kimbrell in the ninth inning. We'll get to what the Phillies did in extra innings. We'll get to what Bryson Stott did in extra innings. We'll get to Nick Castellanos' game entirely yesterday with 2 home runs, what Rob Thompson had to say about it all going down. We'll get to the Phillies wild card standings. We'll get to the Philadelphia Eagles and where they are as far as cornerback goes, particularly in the slot corner position, the nickel corner position. Sean Desai talked about it. The guy that everyone's expecting right now, and rightfully so because he's the guy that came in on Thursday night against the Vikings, was Mario Goodrich. I didn't think he had particularly a great game. That doesn't give you warm and fuzzies going up against the receiving core like one that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can put out there. So we'll have that conversation. And if you want honesty from a player, ladies and gentlemen, if you want honesty from a player, then look no further than Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. We're going to get to that conversation today. But welcome in, welcome all. Let's talk about those Philadelphia. Oh, and Matt Breen from Inquirer, like I said, he's going to stop by. He is doing a series. Now, I talked about this. I didn't realize it was going to be a series. But I talked about his article on Pat Burrell. And I'm like, you know what? We haven't talked to Matt in a while. I got to get him on the show. I got to talk about that article with him, and I got to talk about the Phillies, get his Phillies knowledge, of course. Matt has done – I'm so happy for this guy. This guy has done such a phenomenal job. They said, okay, you know what? We're not going to have you on the beat anymore for the Phils. We want you to do these feature pieces, and the world is your oyster. And a lot of times when a boss says that to you, you're like, I don't really know what that means, but okay, I guess. And this guy said, okay, let's party. And he has, no pun intended, hit home run after home run. His story on Pete Incaviglia, his story he did on Pat Burrell most recently, just time and time again, just throwing haymakers at the idea of doing these feature pieces for Inquirer.com, and he has done phenomenal. So we got him on the show, and he talks about his Pat Burrell story, and I didn't realize he was doing a whole series on the 2008 Phillies. Makes sense. So he did. That's exactly what he's doing. He just did a story on Joe Blanton. For those that don't know, Joe Blanton is a sommelier, and he always had gone far beyond the sommelier, and he has gone to owning his own vineyard in wine country, California. So he did a feature on Joe Blanton. He has just released a feature now on Greg Dobbs. And he tells us that Chase Utley, a story on Chase Utley is coming. And what I really appreciate about the conversation is that Matt and I have, like you guys, a lot of us, we grew up in this area. Grew up as Phillies fans, of course. I grew up as fans, and I still consider myself a fan. I'm excited when the Phillies win. When Nick Casstellanos made that play in the ninth inning, I definitely threw a fist. Not ashamed to admit it. That's half the job. But he does a great job of kind of putting in perspective, what he does now for a living, and the fact that he grew up here. He's a Philadelphia Catholic League guy. He's an Archbishop Ryan guy. I'm an Archbishop Wood guy over here. You know what I mean? So we're the Catholic League getting along. You know what I'm saying? So we'll talk to Matt and really enjoy the conversation. Always do when we get an opportunity to talk to Matt Breen from Inquirer.com. But let's start it up by talking about those Philadelphia Phillies in that game yesterday, because holy Stromboli, that thing was fantastic. So first off, from Nick Castellanos' perspective, just at the plate, what he was able to do to help this team win that ball game was phenomenal. And then that play, we'll jump right to it. The play he made in right field was spectacular. And this is an example, and I talk about this all the time. There's this great book of baseball that a lot of people treat it like it's their Bible, it's their letter of the law, their commandments, whatever you want to call it. And every once in a while, you got to take that book and say, I'm going to skip that chapter and do whatever the hell you feel is necessary. Or as Nick Castellanos put it, you listen to the voice in your head. So before we get to Nick, before we get to Rob Thompson, I'll set the scene for you. And this is the way things went down in that ninth inning yesterday. It was wild. First off, The Phillies go into that ninth inning, leaking a little bit of gas, okay? To put it plainly, they were leaking a little bit of gas, and they shouldn't have been considering the amount of walks that Bryce Elder had in the early goings of that ball game. But the Phillies, nonetheless, they go into that ninth inning. It's all tied up at this point. Phillies are having their issues, and Craig Kimbrell, most importantly, is having his issues. He starts off by walking Murphy. Then they pinch run Luke Williams for their catcher. So now Luke Williams is out there on the base pass. And before you blink, Williams steals second base. All right, no problem. And then Harris comes up to the plate, and he strikes out, but in the process, Luke Williams steals third. So now you got a runner on third with one out. Up next is Arcia. He steps up to the plate. Again, tie ball game. Takes two pitches. He goes up in the count, 2-0. Kimbrell comes back, gets it to a 2-2 count. Foul ball, and then on the seventh pitch at the at-bat, Arcia hits a foul ball, pop fly, foul ball, down the right field line. In pursuit is Nick Casstellanos. If you haven't heard the clip on TV of John Kruk screaming in the background of Tom McCarthy, "Don't catch it! Don't catch it! Don't catch it!" I was thinking, don't catch it, don't catch it, don't catch it. And then I had this thought. Wouldn't it be awesome if he was baiting him? And sure enough, Nick Casstellanos runs over to the spot, makes the catch, does a pirouette, a little thing, and then he fires home and nails Luke Williams trying to score what would be the game-winning run in the bottom of the ninth inning. And he throws him out for the double play to force extra innings. It was without question a no, yes. It's like watching a fake field goal or something. I don't know. Like, no, yes. It was spectacular. He made the perfect play. And that golden book of baseball rules, do's and don'ts, Nick Casstellanos threw it out and just said, this voice in my head is telling me something. I, of course, envisioned the voice as it was Scooby-Doo, his favorite superhero, quote unquote, telling him, catch the ball. And he did. And he fired a strike home, and Garrett Stubbs was the catcher yesterday, and he comes over, makes the tag, boom, no problem, and then they go to extra innings where Bryson Stott put the Phillies up with the 2-run lead. And, of course, they're able to close out a 6-5 victory over the Braves yesterday. It was fantastic. Bottom line is the Phillies took 2 or 3 from the Atlanta Braves. There's not many series I'll look at through the entire season where it's very difficult to change perspective. Like I'll go into a lot of different series and all right, you know what? If the perfect example is the Cardinals series. It just blew the Cardinals series. I was disappointed they didn't get the sweep. They should have gotten the sweep. They did not get the sweep. If you told me to take 2 or 3, I'm still happy, but I would go for the sweep. Perspective changed as that series went on, especially with the way they should have won it. With this series against the Braves, they had an opportunity to win it yesterday, and they went out there and they won it. They took 2 or 3 from the Braves. Now, what's left on the Phillies list is the New York Mets for 7 games and the Pittsburgh Pirates for 3. The final 10 games of the season, they are playing against far inferior opponents. You can't play down to you guys hear me say this all the time. Whatever they have to do to pull focus, whatever they have to do to make sure they do not play down to their opponent, they need to do going forward. Especially now that a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks are piping hot. Good Lord. 2.5 games behind the Phillies right now in the wild card standings. Phillies 4 games up into a wild card spot. Arizona Diamondbacks 1.5 up into a wild card spot. The Cubbies, good Lord, the Cubbies, they're occupying the 3rd wild card spot, and the Miami Marlins are a half game out of wild card contention, with the Reds a game out and the San Francisco Giants 3 games out of a wild card spot. So that's where we sit right now in the standings. Now, as for the rest of this game yesterday, just to talk more about what went down, Phillies had an opportunity to absolutely blow the gift that Bryce Elder was giving out. 3 walks in the first inning. They are able to muster a run out of it on Alec Boehm's RBI single to left field. That made it a 1-0 game. Then they weren't able to get anything else after that in that inning. There was a great play on Brandon Marsh by Nicky Lopez, their shortstop, that he made behind second base to get Brandon Marsh to attempt to extend the inning, where he not only went deep into center field, it seemed like, but made a great throw to first to get Brandon Marsh to end that inning. So that was pretty spectacular on their part. But Aaron Nola yesterday went out and he had a very Aaron Nola type game. The type of game that we were more used to seeing from Aaron Nola last year than we have been so far this year. And Nola went out there. He had control of his fastball. His knuckle curve was dropping in real nice yesterday. I said yesterday that I thought Aaron Nola was going to go 6 1/3 and allow 3 runs, and the Phillies are going to win 4-3. It would look good for a minute, but he ended up giving you 6 solid innings. I love the fact that Rob Thompson had Jose Alvarado up in the bullpen when that 6th inning started. So in case Nola Nola'd the crap out of the 6th inning, he had Jose Alvarado right there ready to go. That was good. That was good managing there by Rob Thompson. But everything looked good for Aaron Nola. 10-pitch first inning. Cruises into the 4th inning without a problem, and that's where he gave up the single to Acuna to lead things off. Then Ozzie Albies goes up there. He gets a single as well. You have 2 runners on. Riley strikes out on the knuckle curve. He just owned Austin Riley. Austin Riley has owned the Phillies pretty well this season. Aaron Nola got the last laugh for the regular season against Austin Riley, which was good. Gets him to strike out. Then Olsen comes up with an RBI single to right field. First pitch cutter that he jumped on. It's a 4-1 ball game at this point. You go into the 5th inning, again, having a little bit of problems there. Murphy goes up there, makes the first out on a line drive to right field. Then Harris goes up there with the double. Lopez gets an RBI single. It's a 4-2 ball game. And this was bonkers. The 5th inning was when Albie steps up to the plate. And with, I believe, a runner on, he had an opportunity to tie the ball game. With a runner on, he has a 9-pitch at bat. Nola ends up getting him to strike out on a knuckle curve and has a 9-pitch at bat. And on the 2-2 pitch, Aaron Nola throws him a cutter that gets a little too much of the middle end zone, okay? And Albies puts a monster swing on this. And when he hit it, I went, oh, goddamn. This is going to be a home run. And it just hooked foul. And then he ends up getting the strikeout there. So it's 4-2 game at the end of the 5th. Going to the 6th inning, he goes out there at 81 pitches in the 6th inning to start things off. Gets Riley to strike out again. 4-pitch at bat. Gets him on a sinker. Olsen grounds out to Bryson Stott. Ozuna gets a single. That was the 90th pitch of the inning, or excuse me, of the game. That would be a lot. 90th pitch of the game for Aaron Nola, and then Rosario grounds out to second to end things, and that was it for Aaron Nola. That was a fantastic outing yesterday from Aaron Nola, and yes, we all need to see a lot more of that. In total, he gave you 6 strong innings, a 2-run baseball, 6 hits, 8 strikeouts, and both those runs were earned. 94 pitches for Aaron Nola yesterday. More of that going forward. If this is Zach Wheeler and this is Aaron Nola, and I said this weeks ago when Aaron Nola finally had his 2 consecutive starts of 7 innings, allowing no more than 2 runs, if Wheeler and Nola are figuring it out, then this is going to be a very long playoff push for the Phillies, just like it was last year. If they're not figuring it out, then it's going to be short. It's going to be short. I still think they're going to win their first series. With home field advantage, they're going to win their first series. But going forward, that's going to be a problem. Even with as much as I'd want to say that the Atlanta Braves are just going to have this amazing regular season, win over 100 games, and they're going to be great. And Spencer Strider's going to be incredible and all that. As much as I think they're going to be great in the playoffs, as much as I want to say they're going to suck and they're going to choke, they're probably going to be great in the playoffs. So I don't have a lot of faith at this moment that the Phillies are going to have a deep playoff push. But I promise you this, when we play the interview that we did yesterday with Matt Breen, you might feel a little bit better about your fighting Phils. He's definitely optimistic. I'll just say that. As far as the Nick Casstellanos play, holy Lord, man. What a play. Here's Rob Thompson after the game talking about his emotions while watching that fly ball go into the foul territory right field and what he was thinking about Nick Casstellanos.
Thinking as Nick tracked down that ball, are you thinking
drop it? Yeah, because he made a heck of a play. I don't want to take anything from him, but it's not really a sure, throw out from that distance. But he made a heck of a play. Thank God he did.
So you're doing kind of the no, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like in the dugout when that happens?
Yeah, we're all sort of murmuring, drop it. But hey, he made the play.
And that's all that matters. He made the play. I swear. And here's Nick talking about it. If you haven't heard this yet, this is fantastic.
I don't know. I thought I was going to drop it, and at the last minute, a voice popped in my head and said, catch and throw him out.
So it wasn't like your momentum going through the ball. It wasn't like, okay, I think I'm going to be able to fire a strike to the plate here. It was just kind of like a split-second thing there?
I don't know, man. It just happened.
First off, that's just beautiful. That's like I said earlier, when they asked Bryson Stott about it and they told him, hey, Nick said he just had a voice in his head, tell him to catch it. He goes, yeah, it sounds like Nick. And everyone started giggling. It is hysterical. I think Nick Casstellanos approached that ball and was just like, I'm probably going to let this drop. Then yes, the voice in his head tells him, and I think the voice would have said something. Yeah, you should drop this, but wouldn't it be cool if you got the double play here? And he just went for it. And sometimes, you know what? Making the wrong decision is the best decision you can make. It was awesome. And he did. He fired an absolute strike to get Luke Williams trying to score from third, trying to tag up there. It was fantastic. To all the little leaguers out there, yeah, let that ball drop most times. Unless, you just want to let one rip, man. Sometimes you just got to let it rip. And he just let it rip yesterday. It was fantastic. Phillies now got the Mets tonight, 7:15. Weird start time in South Philadelphia, but nonetheless, it's 7:15, and that's how things will get underway. Phillies will be fine. Talk more about that in the Morning Rush segment. Here's what I want to get into before we get to Matt Breen. Mario Goodrich looks like he is going to get the slot corner starting responsibilities. Sorry, still fighting that cold. Little head cold. Got a little head cold. Mario Goodrich looks like he's going to get the starting responsibilities as the nickel corner for the Philadelphia Eagles in the absence of Avonte Maddox, who the Eagles officially placed on IR yesterday. So we know he's going to be out for at least 4 games. Here's where we're at with Mario Goodrich. Looking at his numbers from last week against the Vikings, tough receiving core, as we've talked about many times. He is, of course, not started yet for the Eagles, but went out there and has been a special teamer, has played well as a special teamer, but played 39 defensive snaps last week against the Vikings. And of those 39 snaps, that accounted for 67%. That was his first exposure to being out there in a Thursday night football game and having a guy like Justin Jefferson lurking and having an experienced quarterback, whether you like him or not, in Kirk Cousins trying to dissect what the defense was doing. Yesterday, Sean Desai addressed the media and just kind of talked about the maturation process of Mario Goodrich and watching him come along to the point of a guy that is now going to be relied on heavily for the Philadelphia Eagles secondary.
Yeah, I think he got thrown in there. He got thrown in the fire there unexpectedly, I'm sure, for him. But that's a great lesson for everybody to always be prepared, having that next man up mentality. And I thought he got better as the game progressed. There were some things early that, with some motion things and things like that he kind of just had to feel and settle in there a little bit and gain some confidence. And then it's something we emphasize to all of our guys is in those moments, you got to really rely on your training and your preparation.
Couldn't said it better myself. And that obviously comes down, like he was saying, to coaching there. There was a couple of plays where he just got fed his lunch. Those are going to be the growing pains, especially when you're literally thrown into it due to injury. But I thought, as the game went on, you could see that he was a little bit more comfortable in that secondary. I think having a guy like James Bradberry, hopefully, this week, come Monday night, it will help him having your experienced corners on the outside while you just man your spot. I say Jess, but you man your spot on the inside. I thought Josh Jobe was okay and his fill-in last week for James Bradberry, but I think everyone realizes, especially when you have guys like Chris Godwin, you have guys like Mike Evans, and I am no way putting Baker Mayfield in the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but I think Baker Mayfield is a above-average quarterback, and he can play hot. He can get hot. I'm not afraid of him, but if you're Baker Mayfield and a guy's going to be making his first start in nickel corner spot, then you're going to be looking to exploit it, obviously. So I look forward to seeing what the Eagles are going to do to be able to counter that. My saving grace, as I told you yesterday, no matter who your corners are, who's in your secondary, Reed Blankenship, Justin Evans, Terrell Edmonds, Sidney Brown, whoever it might be, you have it easier than some other guys with the pressure you can get up front with this defensive line. And one thing that I saw Sean Desai do in the preseason, he talked about this a little bit yesterday, he's doing it this year. It's not just something he did in the preseason just to like give false film to opponents for the season. Jordan Davis has played on the inside. And Jordan Davis, of course, played on the inside. Jordan Davis also played on the outside. And he's bouncing his defensive tackles around either at the edge rusher position. I shouldn't say edge rusher, defensive end position, specifically, like hands in the dirt. He hasn't had like Jordan Davis standing up. And he has had those guys play their natural DT or nose tackle positions. It's very creative. It's not really something you saw from Jonathan Gannon. But it is pretty neat. I like what I've seen from Sean Desai so far. Obviously, you want production to be there. You don't want to be giving up a ton of points, obviously. But in terms of scheme, strategy, I like what he's done. I'm curious with a healthy defense the way his adjustments will look going forward. But so far, okay, 2 games in. All right, they're Sean Desai. I think it goes without question. I've said this as well. He's winning the coordinator battle. Of the 2 new coordinators, he's so far the guy that's coming up smelling like roses. And Brian Johnson, still waiting to see something good. One thing that I found interesting from Brian Johnson, and this is going to be one of the most honest things we're going to get to in a second, but if you want honesty, then I'll let you hear from Justin Fields. But yesterday when Brian Johnson was addressing the media, they asked him about Jalen Hurts reacting to what defenses have been doing to him so far this season. And he's faced 2 defenses, very similar philosophies with Bill Belichick and obviously Brian Flores. And when they asked him about how he's responding to those defenses and the way he's being played, he was asked, hey, in the first 2 games, how do you think it's going for Jalen Hurts? Reacting, adjusting to what defenses are doing to him so far. And he had a very interesting take on it. Now, they're going to go face Todd Bowles, who, of course, is no slouch when it comes to defensive scheme, and has certainly had his way with Jalen Hurts in the past. Jalen Hurts, I feel, has responded very well. But we'll get to that conversation. But as far as Brian Johnson goes, when he was asked about Jalen Hurts and what he's done to adapt, he was asked what Jalen Hurts has done in 2 games. And Brian Johnson yesterday only talked about game 1. He said, in game 1, I thought he did a good job of checking down and hitting a guy like Kenny Gainwell for receptions early in that game as he was feeling things out. And then he said nothing about game 2. He was asked about the first read. How is he doing after his first read is being taken away? And he talked about the first game. He did not talk about game 2. So that leads me to believe there were some struggles there, and Brian Johnson just wasn't looking to put that all out there, and nor should he. I always want transparency, but if you're Jalen Hurts and that's your coordinator, that's your play caller, then yeah, let's keep some of that stuff in-house about maybe things that I missed. You don't need bad blood starting up. I mean, what is this, the Chicago Bears? If you haven't seen this yet, this is amazing. For those that want honesty, Justin Fields has been having some struggles this season. For those that don't follow the Bears, I try to keep an eye on the rest of the NFL, right, a little bit. Well, they asked Justin Fields yesterday about, hey, man, you're struggling. What's going on out there? And he's like, well, I'm thinking a lot. So a reporter followed up. You're thinking a lot? What's going in there? Listen to this.
When you say thinking less, what do you think was causing you to think so much, maybe think too much?
Could be, coaching.
What was that? Coaching? What? Nobody's that honest. Coaching problems? What was you're gonna say you're gonna coaching? Well, that's interesting. Now, when somebody makes a comment like that, usually there's a panic button hit. Then it's like, oh God, damage control. So they did some damage control, and Justin Fields goes into the locker room after that, ho hum. And they're like, hey, about that? Or he goes into the locker room, I'm sure had a meeting with PR, and then he had to call the media in to his locker and say, don't take what I said out of context. You said what you said. I mean, that's bottom line. how you meant it is now being interpreted. You're saying you meant it in a way, and he did. He walked it back and he said, I'm not blaming coaches. I'm not going to blame teammates. I can only blame myself and take responsibility for me. That's on me. He took all the blame in the world, and that's not how I meant it type of thing. The way I think he said it was he should have said communication. And when we talked to Eberflus about it, he was like, yeah, I think, we want to know all the communication. We want to have all the communication. And if we need to dial, quote unquote, robotic play calling, that was another thing from Justin Fields yesterday, calling everything robotic. And he just needs to go out there and play football the way he knows how to play football. He feels like the coaches are overloading him with information. That's a little too much information. Yeah, that's where he's at right now. So if you want honesty, that's Justin Fields yesterday. Well, I didn't mean it like that. That's what you said. I meant it like communication. That's not what you said. Anyway, look forward Jalen Hurts speaking this week and hearing from the rest of the guys on the squad. I saw Jason Kelce, by the way, while we're on the subject of people saying things they might regret. I saw Jason Kelce was on with my man Joe DeCamera yesterday and would not get into the Travis Kelce. By the way, April, thank you again for sending me that video of that lady on I think it was TikTok, with the ultimate Taylor Swift Eagles fan conspiracy theory that she is just going basically with Travis Kelce to mess with his head and to make sure if the Eagles and Chiefs play again in the Super Bowl, that he is wildly distracted. We'll just say that. It's a whole thing. I don't want to steal that lady's content, but it was pretty fantastic. So he's on WIP yesterday. And he was asked about it. And Joe asked him the question. And credit to Joe, here's the thing. For people that are like, stick to sports. If you have an opportunity to talk about one of the best-known football players and one of the most talked about names recently in the NFL in the name Kelce, and you have the opportunity to talk about one of the biggest stars in our solar system, you talk about it. That's what you call reaching a mass audience. And that's always the goal. So he asked, hey, Jason, what about your brother Travis and Taylor Swift? And Jason did the good brother thing initially. He said, it's Travis's life. I try to stay out of it, his romance, and I know he's having a lot of fun. He goes, I believe the rumors to be 100% true, but, that's Travis's thing. So, he didn't necessarily come out and say Travis and Taylor Swift are dating. He said he believes the rumors are 100% true. So it's like, in a roundabout way, yes, he confirmed it, but he didn't just come out and say it. And of course, everyone ran with it. They're dating and all that stuff. And then I see still this is how rotten people are. People are like, who would want to date Taylor Swift? And I'm like, geez, what the hell, man? A lot of people. Anyway, so I saw that story out there, and of course I had to comment. But hey, if they are good, whatever. Hey, man, I just love love. I want everyone to love. I just love. Unless you're one of my playoff teams getting an early exit, and then I don't love love. I love misery. All right, let's get to our guest today. Matt Breen, Inquirer, joins us to talk about his phenomenal piece. If you haven't seen it yet, Inquirer.com on Pat Burrow. He's got a story out there on Joe Blanton. He's got a story that just came out today on Greg Dobbs. And he does a fantastic job with it. Without further ado, Matt Breen, Inquirer, joins us right here on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. Rothman Orthopedics guest line, making a wonderful return, much anticipated return. A man I can't even keep up with nowadays. Mr. Matt Breen joins the show. Matt, how you been, bud?
I'm good, Mark. It's been way too long. I was actually thinking about it last week. You must have read my mind. I was like, I have not been on Farzy Show in a while. And then you texted me today. It's like, there we go.
Yeah, my apologies.
Out the universe for you to contact me.
Us Catholic leaguers, you know what I mean? It's just we got that telepathy going, right? We were catching up before I hit record. We had moved out. I'd cut back on guests a little bit on the show just to have a little bit more interaction with the audience myself. So we've been not doing as many guests, but so don't feel like it's just you, my friend. Don't feel. No. But here's the deal. So if people don't follow you on social media, on X, for instance, this is how to follow you. The Avoid Northeast Philly road closure, more or less, sign is fantastic. I don't know when you added that, but it's great. People need to follow you on X. And then I was just talking about your story on yesterday's show. This is fantastic. This was such a well-done piece on Pat Burrell and kind of, 2008, his Phillies career, 2008, and then to where he is now. It's great. And then I can't keep up with you. I didn't even realize you were dropping this story at the time we taped this. You dropped it today on Wednesday. 15 years of barreling a World Series, or after barreling a World Series home run, Joe Blanton barreling wine. So people need to check that one out. I literally just noticed it before we started talking now, so people need to check that out. But let's start with Pat Burrell, and then we'll talk about this modern-day Phillies team as well. But I knew the guy was a partier. You knew the guy was a partier. And the story doesn't describe like a rock bottom. It's like not that type of story. It's just a guy that's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should get into rehab here. And he did. And he's 5 years sober now for Pat Burrell. When you had a chance to sit down with him for this wonderful piece, like what was the mood? What was the scene? Can you set it for us in your conversation in your time with Pat Burrell?
It was on the phone. He's in California. And I never covered Pat Burrell. You know, I heard that maybe he wasn't the world's greatest fan of media members, which is, you know, a lot of athletes are like that, and that's fine. I'm just trying to describe him. So I didn't know what I was going into with the interview, but the idea was track down some guys from 08, 15 years later, they're all now retired. How are they adjusting to life after baseball? Once the ride stops, what do you do? So I had known that he was working in the Giants organization. I said, you know, that's interesting. Wait, what's he doing there? And he could not have been nicer, friendlier, helpful. We were supposed to talk. I texted him, say, on a Wednesday. He texted me back right away. How about tonight at 6 o'clock your time? Because he's on the West Coast. I said, that's great. I know, whenever you want to talk, I'm going to talk. So he calls me at 5 and says, hey, I'm really sorry. Can we do 6:30? I said, yeah, again, I don't care. So we get on at 6:30. He goes, Matt, I'm so sorry, you know, that I did that. And I'm like, Pat, I don't care. Like, come on. And he was so cool. And I just asked him, we were talking and the conversation was rolling. I said, you know, you were on this ride from high school to college to the minors to the majors. You had this great career and then it stops. All of a sudden it's done. What do you do? Like you're 30. I looked it up. You were 34, which in baseball is old, and I'm 34 and I think I'm a kid still. And you're retired. And he said, you know what? It's something that he said it's talked about a lot more now, but it wasn't talked about then. And the adjustment was really hard. And I don't mind telling you this, that I went to rehab and I was drinking too much and I had to get sober. And 5 years now, and he's got a second wife and he's got stepdaughters and he's got this, you know, he's great life. He said, my life is way different than it was 15 years ago. And the one thing he said was that some people understood this and some people didn't. He said, I wouldn't change a thing, but I don't think I would go back and do it again. And which makes he's like, he learned from everything he did.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean he wants to live with made sense. Like he's not, you know, every mistake he made or, you know, good thing, bad thing he learned from. And it's one of those interviews you hang up and you're like so appreciative of, you know, the time that he gave you, the openness, the sharing of that. And no one had known that yet. No, in the public had known that yet. So I was appreciative that he told me that. I don't know. Sometimes you get lucky and you stumble into a really good story and it works out. And then all these guys, like if you talk to older athletes, retired guys, and you say, hey, can you tell me about that 3-pointer you made in 1987? Some guys might break it down for you. Some guys might say, oh, you know what? I forgot. It's a long time ago. And it's like, they just don't want to play along because it can be exhausting. Chase Utley, I said, you know, this is for a later story when he's on the Hall of Fame bout. I said, that play you scored from second base against the Braves in 06, where Harry Cal says, Chase Utley, you were the man. I said, can you break that down for me? And he gave me like the director's cut of that. First, he's like, it was really hot. And I'm like, all right. And then he just rolled. And it was great. I'm sitting there in my room. And again, I am, you know, he is, when I'm in high school and college, really like the last chapter of my diehard Phillies fandom before this business kind of takes over my life. And he's describing this play, and I'm thinking, and as I'm recording it, I'm like, even if this wasn't for work, like I am just opening like the mind of Chase Utley right now. It's like you do this job and you do it professionally and you do it down the middle, but I always have allowed myself to step back and be like, wow, like what would my 14-year-old, 18-year-old self think of this right now? So this week was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun catching up with these guys, chasing them down. Because again, like these were like now they're normal people. I can see that. But as a kid, these were like the idols of my life. And I was able to have these real conversations, texting like Greg Dobbs right now. He's the next day's story. And I need to get a photo of him. And we're texting back and forth. And he's Matt, I'm so sorry. Like all that. It's like, you're having my phone. It's like, pops up Joe Bland. It's like, how did this happen? It's just been a lot of fun. This job it's a very rewarding job sometimes. Obviously it takes a lot of work, but I mean, weeks like this and this month has been a lot of fun for me, especially the connection I had as, getting into this business, being a sports fan and being grown up in Philly.
I have to share this story because you're so on point, man. And, I grew up like you. I grew up in this area, big fan and all that stuff. I had this instance last week or 2 weeks ago. I hosted this hockey tournament and I was just about to leave. And right before I left, they had grabbed me and I'd done 5 minutes of play-by-play. It wasn't play-by-play. It was my version of play-by-play, which was not play-by-play. So anyway, I'm hosting this hockey tournament in Fishtown and they grabbed me right before I'm about to leave. I'm literally saying goodbye to people. And the person putting it together said, hey, Jim Jackson's here. And I know Jim now. Jim and I are friends and he's a great guy. And they say, hey, could you and Jim do some play-by-play real quick? And I'm thinking, I got to get out. I got to get to my family. And I'm like, but they're nice people. They do a great job. And I love JJ, so I'll absolutely do it. So I did it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I got to get out of here. We only did it, I swear, for maybe 5-10 minutes at most. And I get down and somebody says to me who's organizing the event, well, that's pretty cool. You just did 10 minutes of play-by-play with Jim Jackson. And it hit me. If you would have told 15, 16-year-old Mark Farzetta, who was getting his homework done as quickly as possible to watch all the Flyers games and talk to his buddies on the phone about Jim Jackson's call and Eric Lindros's goal or John LeClair's goal, whatever, if you would have told him that he would be doing that, he would have been ecstatic. And, Matt, I feel so terrible. I got totally lost in the idea that I had to go, that I didn't appreciate it. And I know, and look, JJ and I are friends. It'll happen again. But I like kicked myself on the ride home. I was like, you spoiled bastard. You wasted this great. Like, if you would have told 15-year-old you that, you would have been, that's incredible. So I totally lost it, man. But good for you to keep that perspective.
Yeah, I think it just it always allows you to have that sense of appreciation for, the job and that a connection with the readers too, because the readers are, they're fans. Right? Like that's who we write for. I'm not writing for another non-partisan journalist. Like I'm writing this story for fans of Philadelphia to consume it. And I used to say this when I covered the team. Like when I covered the Phillies, I wasn't a Phillies fan anymore. Like that just naturally eroded over time. Like when I was covering high schools or colleges or boxing, like you just got obsessed with what I was doing. And I kind of somehow, some way, like it just fell out of me where that was like an absolute obsession, my whole family, like my whole life. So I would say I wasn't a Phillies fan for this, still not like, but I know what it feels like. And I know how good a walk-off win feels like. And I know how awful a walk-off loss feels like. I can appreciate that. Like, my dad sleeps better when the Phillies win. Like that's a true fact. Like, if they lose, I remember as a kid, like, how'd you sleep last night? It's like, I did not sleep. I'll just lay awake and stew over it. And, there were nights where you kick stuff when the Phillies lost as a kid. And like I remember that. And I remember the euphoria of going to a road game with my buddies and a win. So like, I've never lost that. I obviously I consume the games differently now, and I don't wear Phillies paraphernalia and stuff, but I definitely understand what it feels like to be a fan. You can't erase the first 20 years of my life from my memory. And these guys that was like my last team. Like Bryce Harper is, I was thinking about this today. I love Bryce Harper, like the person, like working environment. He's awesome. He's so helpful with the beat writers. When I was on the beat, he was great. He knows everybody's name, and he's a great person and obviously super talented, and you love to watch him play and you marvel at him. But like, I'm not a Bryce Harper fan, where as a kid, I was a Chase Utley fan, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
it's, you appreciate people differently. And like, you know, when Chase Utley comes up on your caller ID because you're supposed to interview him, it's still like, go back in time and tell yourself and, you know, senior year of high school that's going to happen.
That's awesome. It doesn't. Wait, hold on. So it doesn't come up as just the man. Come on. No. All right. Anyway, sorry. I had to get that. All right.
I told you that in confidence.
It's such a great article you wrote on Pat Burrell. One more thing I want to ask you about it. I thought it was fascinating. His wife now was also his high school sweetheart.
Yes. They both on their second marriages. They reconnected. She lives out there. Her name is Elizabeth, but she goes by Boo, B-O-O. And she has 2 daughters. And Pat's like, yeah, we just dropped the one off at college this week. He's like, things are different. You know, it was cool. And it was, the thing is, like, sometimes I write these stories and you go to bed at night knowing it's going to be posted at 5 a.m. the next day. And I'm like, no one is going to read this story. Like, I just have that sense of dread. Like, and it's going to be such an egg on my face when this story just bombs. And all of these stories have resonated so much more than I expected and exceeded my expectations. So that's the thing I appreciate too. Like, people took the time to read it. It connected with people. And I think it shows just how truly popular this team was and this era of Phillies baseball was. And it's still recent enough that it's not in the cobwebs yet. It's still fresh in your memory, but it's passed a little bit enough that it is, you know, vintage Phillies history. But it's been a lot of fun, and there's more. I think there's 7 of them that are coming out, and possibly more. I got excited last night with just because it's like people are just reading them so much, and I'm like, it's really so encouraging. So it's like, all right, who else can I get? Maybe I need like 1 or 2 more guys, because it's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad people are reading it. So
gotcha. It was, if your ears were ringing yesterday morning, it was because I was talking about your story. And then I didn't even see this one. Like I said, I can't keep up with you. The story on Joe Blanton. Just to put this in perspective, and I just want to ask you one more question about your writing, and then we'll get to the modern day Phillies. But we had Scott Air on this show, and I knew Joe Blanton was in the wine business, but we had Scott Air on this show maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And I said, you know, like, between Brett Myers as a musician, Brad Lidge as an archaeologist, and Joe Blanton as a wine connoisseur, like, who's the most surprising post-career career? And he goes, oh, without question, Joe Blanton. I go, more than an archaeologist? He was like, Lidge was always studying that stuff. And he's like, Brett Myers was always singing. He goes, but Joe beer drinking Blanton as a wine connoisseur was the most mind-blowing. So I remember thinking, like, that's a pretty roundabout way. That's a pretty insane way to go about, or, you know, change of pace there for Joe Blanton. But from that article, from your story on him, what's something that really surprised you about the Joe Blanton post-playing career story?
Yeah, he got all into it. Like, he would vacation in Napa Valley every offseason, and that was his way to, like, shut it down. Him and his wife, after the season, take a week and just, you know, unwind, reset, and then go back to the next year. And he just loved it so much that he started taking college courses. There's college courses in California about vineyard management, how to make wine, how to prune grapes, all that stuff. So he took all those, and he, you know, got certified, and you learn how to do it. And then he actually bought a vineyard that was already planted. So that gave him a head start.
Sure. And
he partnered with a winemaker and a vineyard management company, which is like a farmer. And they do most of the serious stuff they take care of. And then he knows his limitations. Even though he went to school and is obsessed with the business and probably could do it, but he also knows that he leans on these guys to do it. And he goes up there. He lives a 10-minute drive from the mountain that it's on. And he's really involved. It's just that he also knows he's a baseball pitcher, and he lets these guys do it. And it's cool. It's just, and again, like, these guys, the ride stopped for him, and he bought this a couple years before he retired. So he had the plan that when I'm done playing, I'll transition to the vineyard, and he's still able to coach his kids in baseball and stuff. So they kind of gave him that sense of purpose once he was done playing baseball.
Yeah, better wine than that Vermeil character. Yeah, Dick Vermeil wine. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I look forward to reading it, man. I didn't know you were just pumping these things out like nobody's business. Let me ask you about this modern day Phillies team. Okay, this current roster right now, leading the number one spot in the wild card portion of things right now, the best non-division winner team out there to this point. What are your expectations? What do you think are realistic expectations for Phillies fans looking at this squad right now?
I mean, you go to the World Series last year, right? So, like, why not do it again? Even though the Braves are much better than they were last year, but it's the same cast of characters for the most part, and they've gotten better because they've added Trey Turner, and I think this is a playoff. It's a playoff team. Like, it's really not a regular season team. Obviously, they're not going to win 100 some games like the Braves, but I think this is a group of stars that can turn it on, and that's the hope that once the playoff starts, they flick that switch. It's going to be great if they get the first wild card. You're hosting that first round at home. That's such a huge advantage to have that, not have to travel, and then you go down to Atlanta. And as great as the Braves are, I don't think it's like the Braves have to be annoyed if you're getting the Phillies in the first round. After a bye again, that's not really, it's not a wild card team like that you would think. That's not your traditional wild card team. So I expectations are, why not? Why can't they do what they did last year? It's the playoffs in baseball with the extra spots have diluted the regular season, the meaning of it. So I think they will. They have a chance to make a run. The pitching, the starting pitching is after Wheeler is a question mark for me for sure. The bullpen is inconsistent at best, but I'm excited. I think this is like such a lull because it's like they're not chasing anything really. No one's really chasing them. They're not going to collapse. Like, they're not going to win the division. It's just wrap it up. And like, let's fast forward and get to the playoffs. It's like the NBA. Like, that final month of the regular season, you're like, oh my God, who cares? But really, I just think this is like, it's going to be great to host playoff games at home. The place will be rocking like last year. Where I don't think if they had hosted the wild card round last year, I don't think the place would have been like as electric because like people weren't like totally bought in when they made the playoffs. They had to go to St. Louis, and then that got everybody bought in. Then they win a game in Atlanta. Then when they come home, the place is nuts. But this time, the place is going to be nuts from the jump. Like, it's just going to be just like it was last year. Everyone's, carried over that momentum. So it'll be fun. And I think this is like I said, I think Dave Dombrowski built a playoff roster. It's a roster that's good enough to get through the regular season. Who cares? If you win the World Series, nobody says, that team won 80-some games. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. It's just get in, make noise, and I think this is a team that can definitely do that.
Absolutely. And it's such a good point to look back on last year. At this time, you were thinking, all right, are they still going to make the playoffs? They're still fighting for that spot. And now you're right. It's like, wild card again. Like, you know what I mean? Anyway, Matt, still great catching up with you, man. Yes, you're right. It has been far too long. They are great stories right here with Pat Burrell. Obviously, people need to check that out. And then the most recent story you can check by going to Inquirer.com, or also just going to Matt Breen on X and clicking on this story here with Joe Blanton. I look forward to reading it. Literally just noticed it before you and I started this interview. Matt, great catching up with you, my man. Thanks so much.
Great talking to you, Mark. Thanks so much, man.
Matt Breen joining us right here on the Ruffman Orthopedics guest line. My thanks once again to Matt Breen for stopping by the show. Always good to catch up with him, and great stuff. Check his stuff out on Inquirer.com. Hey, let me tell you about our sponsor, MyBookie. Check out MyBookie, NFL, college, brand new cash out system. Gives you options to bet and win all season long. First two legs of your parlay hit. Check this out. You can cash out early and place another bet, or you could let it ride and maybe put it on something else for a bigger payday, baby. Join us at MyBookie for the entire season, filled with daily odds boosts, same game parlays, as well as huge prize pool contests. Right now at MyBookie, there's a no strings attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you could receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code Farzy to claim your own cash bonus right now. You could bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Use promo code Farzy. Here it is again. Use promo code Farzy on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. Use promo code Farzy at MyBookie. Check it out. Let your games begin, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into the chat check, see how you wonderful people are doing today. Hello. Sean Kilrain, good morning. Sean Kilrain, Big Nick did big things yesterday. You damn right he did. Sean Gillespie, good morning. Hopefully the Phillies have instilled some doubt into the Braves. I hope so. I'll tell you one guy who's got a grudge match with the Phillies seems to be Spencer Strider. I don't want to face him in the playoffs again. I don't think it'll be the same outcome. Professor Nuts, good morning. I'm ready for pumpkin spice coffee. Yeah, I was just out taking the trash out. There's a crispness in the air. Yep, it definitely feels like that. I am not a pumpkin spice guy. I don't enjoy the pumpkin spice. I know people enjoy the pumpkin spice. I don't enjoy the pumpkin spice. It's not for me. Nicky Three Buttons heard those voices in his head. Glue player just needs to be, just as we expected last season. Sure. Everyone keeps saying Casstellanos' internal voices were evil, but never said that at all. I don't think they're evil. I think Nick Casstellanos, and I admire this. This is not a slight. I admire this. This is not disrespect. I admire this. He has a lot of contempt for speaking to the media. Like, he thinks it's stupid. Like, every time I see him in an interview, the Scooby-Doo piece is a perfect example of it. I've seen even Tom McCarthy. Tom McCarthy will set Nick Casstellanos to like talk about something. Like, that was a heck of a play and right. Yep. You know, when you say that as an interviewer, quote unquote, you're setting him up to talk. You just want to lead the horse to water, and hopefully he drinks, right? Nick Casstellanos doesn't do that. He's like, is that a question? It's a setup. Duh. Could you talk about it? No. Anyway, I think he thinks talking to the media after a game is stupid. And I don't fault him for it. And yes, I just think that he is hilarious. Pumpkin spice latte, ice cold latte. What? You guys are losing me on the lattes. Scooby-Doo's hero is Dino Mutt. And now you know. All right. April, good morning. Nick was a beast yesterday. He absolutely was. Professor Dutch, Braves are about to have an October letdown, followed, of course, by another Dallas letdown circa end of December. I do look at the Braves as the Dallas Cowboys of the, they won that World Series, though. But I do look at the Braves as the Dallas Cowboys of baseball. Except people don't care as much about the Braves as they do the Cowboys. Sean Gillespie can't wait. April, best theory ever for the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce theory. Can't wait for Taylor Swift, Kelce song after the breakup. That's a popular theory, Sean, and I can't wait for it either. But, health and happiness to both those beautiful people. Mia Sanchez, morning all. Love the risk Casstellanos took to catch and throw in the ninth. Never know what could have happened afterwards. Phillies are about to clinch a playoff spot in the Mets' faces. Ring the bell. Sean Kilrain. Ryan Rader. I'm sorry, you guys are the Ragdolls. You'll always be the Ragdolls. You'll only be the Ragdolls. I know that's the ladies' teams, but you get what I'm saying. Had a DC fan chirping at me yesterday. Can't wait till they play a real team. Really? First off, April, Nationals fans aren't real. They're not real people. They're just figments of our imagination. A DC fan. That's what I say to that. Go back to being an Orioles fan, like a real person. All right. Jacob Sports. What's up, guys? Jacob, King Pooty TV. Go Phils. What's going on? Darius Young. I love skipping the baseball segments, not listening to that boring BS. Come on, Darius. Come on. That's not nice. Anyway. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful. All right, Phillies. Here we go. Morning Rush segment brought to you by Sky Motorcars. SkyMotorcars.com. Let's see what we get in here with this Phillies team. 7:15 start time tonight. Here are your starting pitchers for tonight's game. You got David Peterson, left-handed pitcher, going up against Ranger Suarez. Lefty-lefty battle tonight. Peterson 3-8 on the season with a 5.22 ERA. As for his recent games this season, his last 2 starts, he's gone 5 2/3, allowing 3 runs, 2 of them earned, gave up 1 home run, 10 strikeouts. Got 18 strikeouts in total over his last 2 games. Previous that was against the Reds. It was a losing effort for him. Then against the Twins in Minnesota, he went 6 innings, allowing 3 runs, all earned on 8 hits. Struck out 8 in that performance. That is pretty good. He has not faced the Phillies this season, so this will be the first time Phillies bats are seeing him on the year. As for Ranger Suarez takes the ball for the Phillies, looking to certify, establish, and guarantee himself some starts in the postseason. 3-6 on the season with a 3.80 ERA. Ranger Suarez looked like Ranger Suarez, and he's looked like Ranger Suarez over his last handful of starts. He went 6 innings, allowing 1 run on 4 hits against St. Louis in that series. Previous to that, strong performance, 6 1/3 against the Miami Marlins, allowing 3 runs over those 6 1/3. As for his time against the Mets this season, he's had 1 start against the New York Mets this year, and that was at the end of May, and it was a good one. Unfortunately, the Phillies gave him no run support. It was just his 4th start of the season since joining the team in May after dealing with his injury. And it was his first really good start of the year, 6 2/3 on that May 30th start in New York, in Flushing. He went 6 2/3, allowing 2 runs on 5 hits, only needing 99 pitches through 6 2/3. So that was a great thing to see for Ranger. Unfortunately, again, it was a 2-0 loss for the Phillies. So Phils and Mets back at it tonight. Game 1 of what will be 7 games against the Mets to help end the season and hopefully solidify the Phillies' place as the top wild card team in the National League. So I'll have my fingers crossed for that, as I know we all will. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie. Check out MyBookie, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Farzetta. Jim Hyde produced program, did a wonderful job as per usual. I will be back with you guys tonight after the Phillies handle the business against the New York Mets in South Philly. So see you guys then. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Talk to you tonight. Bye.